Hello and welcome to the special project by Ukraine Crisis Media-Center, Euro-Atlantic Course and Analytical Center of Ukrainian Catholic University, dedicated to Russia-Ukraine War, Ukraine in Flames. My name is Victoria Zabian, I'm head of UCMC Press Center, and the topic of our video today is Russia-Ukraine negotiations. Staying in danger under missiles, shellings, and bombardments, Ukrainian people are still waiting for the results of negotiating groups meeting. Of course, all Ukrainians hope that negotiation process will be fruitful and bring the peace to our country. But at the same time, there are some worries about the possible unpopular compromises that Ukrainian leadership could accept. This is what our speakers will talk about today. And the first of them is the chairman of the board of Ukraine Crisis Media Center, Valery Chali.
Dear friends of Ukraine, now many talks in the world about possible negotiation between Russia and Ukraine. I want to remind you, before full-scale attack of Russia and Ukraine, our president, our government proposed many times negotiations to prevent war. Unfortunately, Russians avoid that type of talks and negotiations, and only now they are ready to discuss something. You know why? Because our soldiers, our officers, our army successfully killed their troops. What kind of negotiations could be in this situation? Only one type of negotiations, peace, agreement, after the Russian troops be withdrawn from Ukrainian territory, after Russian decision not make another attempt to attack Ukraine, after having real guarantee of our security. Before that, all the demands and proposals like disarmament of Ukraine, neutrality, to just reject of possible security model, including collective security in Europe, and also grabbing our territories like Crimea or Donbas, altogether it seems like a proposal of capitulation for my country. That's unacceptable, even in that tragedy time for Ukrainian people. We will never ever support this capitulation. We will never ever trust Russians, because all our bilateral treaties, including Treaty of Friendship, could you imagine, Treaty of Friendship, they guarantee our security and territorial integrity. They kill this treaty. And Budapest Memorandum doesn't work. Any guarantee in the world not prevent Russian massive attack, landscape war against Ukraine. So what we should do? First of all, we should have the common understanding in my country between people, army and the government about possible compromises. Second, it's absolutely unacceptable some demands that comes from the enemy, and such type of demands like just give them territories of my country. It's absolutely impossible, taking into account our constitution and our legal framework. The proposal on neutrality is now discussable, but, it's like a trap. I think it's a real trap, because neutrality in the country, in the heart of Europe, near Russia, this will continue attacking us, threatening Ukraine. This will be not a real possible model for sustainable ceasefire, sustainable peace. So what we should do with our partners abroad? We should be prepared, for peace agreement. In the end of this battle, we should prepare the real condition of maintaining peace. Just not a fake, just not a taking absolutely unacceptable demands leading Ukraine to capitulation. Only way for that, taking Russian troops out. After that, finding the mechanism, including our main partners like United States, Great Britain, Canada, Japan, European partners, Turkey, and it should be not a bilateral between Russia and Ukraine. It should be international negotiation, maintaining new security system and new conditions to guarantee security in Europe, including Ukraine. It's only way to achieve peace. Everything else just continues war.
Ivana Klimpush-Tsintsadze, MP and head of the Committee for Integration of Ukraine to European Union, sent us her comments on Russia-Ukraine negotiations again. This is what she said.
Dear friends, any war ends with either capitulation or some negotiations and some peace agreement being signed. At this moment, I do not see Russia capitulating in any mid-term perspective, as I think that possibility could come only if the political regime in Russia is changed, or if Putin is not in power anymore, or if the federation is dissolved. I cannot see Ukraine capitulating either, because notwithstanding all the atrocity that Russia brought on our land and all the shelling, pounding, and killing Ukrainian civilians across the country by Russian terrorist forces, even if Russia succeeds further militarily, it will get resistance and guerrilla war on all the territory of Ukraine. So most likely this war can turn into a longer term disaster, and that is going to be very difficult, both security-wise, both economic-wise, psychological-wise for Ukraine, and obviously it will be extremely difficult in terms of death toll of Ukrainians being killed by Russian Federation in this war. And that type of war can actually lead, unfortunately, to some tiredness of the West from the war, as it was in the first wave of Russian invasion starting in 2014. Nevertheless, negotiations are important, but it is hard to negotiate with someone who speaks only the language of ultimatums, and with someone whose main goal is to destroy you as a nation, as a country, as a state, and to erase you from the map of the world. As Golda Meir, the leader of real Israel, has put it once, that it's impossible to negotiate on peace with those who have come to kill you. So I do not expect much from today's talks, from the ongoing talks between Ukrainian and Russian delegations. Maximum that I expect from those is maybe humanitarian corridors for the people to escape to safer places from those cities and those villages and towns that are being ruined and totally destroyed by Russian artillery, Russian aviation, Russian constant shelling and attacks. I don't even expect the real ceasefire to be the result of this talks, or assistance to any of the Ukrainian citizens. Look at what they are doing with Mariupol. They are trying to destroy the city as such. They are taking hostage Ukrainians there. They are taking hostage medics, volunteers. They are killing innocent people in the theater where the big sign was saying kids right in front of the building, so that aggressor would not dare to attack, but they did. So they are using civilians as a human shield, and they are not going to stop in any nearest future. We can see that already. So I cannot see any compromise with Russians without losing our statehood or our sovereignty or our ability to exist as a nation. With regard to the red lines, I also see the red lines that are probably different from some four major groups. And I see four major groups as such as Ukrainian authorities, Then the other group, it's civil society of Ukraine, armed forces of Ukraine, and the main kind of most passionate part of the society. Another group is the average Ukrainian citizen who is scared of the war. And probably the fourth group is the West. I can clearly talk about red lines for the second group that I feel I represent. And for us, definitely the red lines are not losing our sovereignty, our statehood, our territorial integrity, our ability to choose our path, our further path to European and Euro-Atlantic integration of the country. If any compromise could be reached, we can probably discuss not putting any nuclear weapons on the territory of Ukraine. Or maybe we can discuss not getting by military force Crimea or the earlier occupied eastern territories of Ukraine. That's probably as much as it gets to the red line, to the compromises. And I hope that Ukrainian authorities feel well the mood and the attitude of this most passionate part of the Ukrainian society, capable of fighting back to the aggressor. With regard to average Ukrainian, I totally understand that people who are scared from war, who are tired from war, they will be probably looking for the end of the war at any cost, without real understanding that giving in to the aggressor would only, unfortunately, to lead in the longer run to a new cycle of attack, to a new attempt to destroy the country. And with regard to the West, I can see that the red line for the West is not starting the World War III. And there is still a lack of understanding in the West that the World War III is already ongoing. So I do not believe in realism of any concessions to Putin in exchange for peace. Because the more he receives, the more his appetite grows. We remember Georgia, we remember Crimea back in 2014, then our eastern territories, now this new wave of attack and aggression against Ukraine. So if we compromise, we are not going to end up under the orbit of Russian influence. We will actually lose our chance to survive. So that's why I believe that we have no other way than to win. And to win, I am together. I mean, we, not only Ukrainian society, not only Ukrainian people and Ukrainian armed forces, but also our Western colleagues, our Western friends, all those who believe in values. I think it's important right now to listen to your societies. It's in this populistic world rather rare that societies are leading and guiding rather than political elites. But this is exactly what is happening today. So help Ukraine. Help Ukraine to help yourselves, because it is world's responsibility not to allow genocide being carried out in the center of Europe in the 21st century. And please do not allow, help us not to allow, to destroy the country in the center of Europe, the free country, the democratic country, whose only guilt is that it wanted to choose its own path and it wanted to have its own future.
Prominent expert Valery Pekar, the lecturer of Kyiv-Mohyla Business School, recorded his comments specially for our project about the red lines that should be guarded by Ukrainian authority within the negotiations.
Speaking about red lines and Ukrainian position at negotiations with Russia, we should first of all think that any peace should be better than a peace before the war. And that is why just coming back to 2014 isn't enough. It isn't enough to free territories which are captured or being tried to be captured now. It isn't enough to agree with the Russian Crimea and territories occupied in 2014. Ukrainian red line should be that any Russian soldier should occupy no 1 square mile of Ukrainian territory. But indeed, ending the war in Ukraine would be just a temporary measure unless there will be deep social and political reforms in Russia. Because if there will be ceasefire, this ceasefire period will be used by Russian forces just for better preparation for the next attack. That is why, to ensure global security and to return Russia to the international community of nations will necessarily entail the deep change within Russia. I think we could speak about 7D plan for Russia, which means first, demilitarization, reduction of armed forces in the European part of Russia, and creation of demilitarized zones along Russia's borders with European Union and Ukraine, also Belarus and Georgia. Second, denuclearization, decommission a nuclear weapon. Third, decentralization, real return of federalism to Russian constitutional political system, which means restoration of rights of national republics. For democratization, which means free election under the international supervision and international standards, and release of all political prisoners, and creation of public broadcaster, and support for independent media and NGOs and political parties. Then decommunization, which means condemnation of the crimes of the communist regime, and prohibition of communist symbols. De-Stalinization, which is the very important part of the plan, the elimination of the cult of Stalin, the elimination of the cult of military power and expansion. That means that all narratives and heroes and holidays and textbooks and school curriculum should be reviewed. And greatness of Russia should be disidentified with military power and aggressive policies. And the last but not least, deputinization, which means illustration of key figures of Putin regime and privatization of state holdings, which form the basis of his authoritarian style, of his authoritarian rule. And indeed, it involves publicly denouncing the catastrophic heritage of Putin regime and all individuals associated with it. I think this should be a plan which international community should offer to Russia to invite back Russian people, Russian nation to the international community of free nations.
Our team also involved military expert Archil Tsintsadze to assess the possible progress within Russia-Ukraine negotiations from his perspective. Here is what he said.
My name is Colonel Archil Tsintsadze, and we are here in Ukraine and trying to fight and to resist the Russian invasion. We thought the negotiations may start sometime, and there is a moment when we could discuss the red lines, what the red lines would be for the Ukrainian society to accept or not to accept from the negotiation process. It's hard to say what the demands will be from the Russian side, and it might not be hard to understand what the extreme demands will be from Russian side. They believe they will demand almost everything, like saying no NATO and disarm and even eliminate the armed forces of Ukraine, and plus to that, while accept all the political and even the economical processes and economical ultimatums, how to say, from Russia. But But I believe that during these years of independence, Ukrainians, they grew up. They grew up as a nation, as a really big and strong nation. And this invasion, again, it proved one more time that Ukrainians, they could resist. They could resist even such a danger, such a evil as the Russian Empire is today. So while speaking about the red lines, I still believe that the red lines might be accepted or might be discussed from the political and the military political leadership of Ukraine. But at the same time, while I mentioned the Ukrainian society, and while I said that Ukrainian society is already grown up, and it might not be acceptable for Ukrainian society. It's hard to say. It's hard to say how the leadership sees the future of this conflict, and it's hard to see and hard to understand how the population of Ukraine and the militaries of Ukraine, they understand the future of their country through this conflict. Red lines are always the red lines, and no one knows who imposes these red lines. Sometimes we impose the red lines to ourselves. Sometimes society imposes the red lines to the leadership, and this is exactly the case which happens here in Ukraine. Society, it's grown up, and it will be imposing the red lines to the leadership. Leadership needs to be clear with the society, with the population. Clear in sense of giving them the full understanding how they are going to resolve the conflict, how they are going to stop Putin, and what the compromises they are ready to make to stop the war. What I believe that the other side, the Putin, he is not going to compromise himself, and he is not going to give up anything he already decided for him to achieve. That's why these red lines might be really hard, and these red lines might be split in two directions. First, which is the red lines for the leadership, and the red lines for the society. I believe there might be some compromises between the red lines of society and red lines of the government, but to achieve that compromise would be really hard. It would be really hard because Ukrainians, they are paying with blood every day. They are sacrificing their lives. They're fighting tough, if anyone asks me, because this is a strong nation. I would wish to stay in the frames of red lines imposed by the society. This is what means the dignity. This is what means the future of the nation, and this future of the nation should be bright. We shouldn't be ashamed of our kids. We shouldn't be ashamed of our generations, the younger generations, who will be coming next to us, and who will be either making heroes from us, or just blaming us for giving in the country and being the Putin slave. So God bless Ukraine. God bless armed forces of Ukraine, and I hope everything will be in the way as the Ukrainian society wants.
Let's move to regional speakers, and one of them is Yuri Mitrofanenko. He's from Kropivnitsky, and he's PhD in historical sciences. Let's hear what he recorded for us.
Мене звати Юрій Митрофаненко, я є істориком, кандидатом історичних наук, громадським діячем. І декілька думок стосовно переговорів між Україною та Російською Федерацією. З точки зору історії дуже цікавою є фраза Отто фон Бісмарка, який радив майбутнім політикам і Німеччини, і не тільки Німеччини, не довіряти жодним домовленостям з Росією. В Україні вже є такий досвід стосовно Будапештського меморандуму, договору 1997 року, що показала практика, що вони не варті нічого. Мінські домовленості. Так само Росія грубо їх порушувала і 23 лютого заявила, що вони вже не діють мінські домовленості. Тому це стосовно змісту переговорів з Росією. Але кожна війна закінчується переговорами. І кожна війна або капітуляцію, або домовленості. Програма мінімум. Росіяни відводять свої війська на той кордон, який вони порушили 24 лютого 2022 року. Тобто вступають в дію мінські домовленості. Тобто вони виводять свої війська з території України. Далі. Це перше і найголовніше. Зрозуміло, що вони нічого не будуть нам відбудовувати, нічого не будуть компенсувати. Ці питання навіть і не треба ставити. Не варто на них витрачати час. Тепер питання друге. Питання стосовно нейтрального статусу України. Ще раз наголошую, це не Росії вирішувати. В Україні є Конституція, і в Конституції записано, що Україна прагне стати членом НАТО. І не з Росією нам ці питання обговорювати. Тобто ці питання, як кажуть, вони мають бути винесені за дужки. Так само, як Росія не хоче обговорювати з Україною майбутнє Криму, з точки зору їхньої дипломатії це те, що не підлягає обговоренню, так само і ми не повинні з ними це обговорювати.
We would like to finish our video with a very emotional and sincere appeal by Yaroslava Degtyarenko, writer from Zaporizhia. Let's listen to her powerful message to the world.
Вітаю! Моє ім'я Ярослава Дегтяренко. Я українка, авторка романів з історії України, в сюжети яких вкладаю реальні історичні події з минулого моєї батьківщини. Для цього я ретельно вивчаю історію не тільки України, але й сусідніх країн. 24 лютого 2022 року Росія напала на мою країну. Росіяни не знають жалості та честі. Вони навмисно б'ють з артилерії по житловим будинкам. Розстрілюють мирне населення, яке намагається виїхати з зони бойових дій по раніше узгодженим гуманітарним коридорам. Не шкодують навіть маленьких дітей. Насправді ця війна триває ще з 2014 року, коли Росія підло відібрала Кримський півострів та відторгнула частину східних українських земель – Донбас. А нині Росія вирішила остаточно знищити мою країну. Чому? Як людина, яка достатньо знає історію, можу сказати, що війна України з Росією триває століттями. Історія дуже жорстока наука, вона вимагає говорити лише правду, а правда – ще більш жорстока річ. Українці та росіяни ніколи не були спорідненими народами. Це пропагандистська брехня Радянського Союзу. Виток моєї нації починається щонайменше з 9 століття, з часів існування держави Київська Русь. Пращури українців заснували потужну європейську державу, створили унікальну та самобутню культуру, якій понад 1000 років. На кордонах Київської Русі закінчувалася цивілізована Європа і всі ті здобутки європейської цивілізації, які цінні для людства і всьогодення. Росія цього не має. Вона зародилася у середині 14 століття як васал Золотої Орди та увібрала в себе усі негативні риси цієї держави. Бо якщо Золотій Орді була притаманна певна шляхетність, то Росія її не має. Її принцип – поділяй та володарюй. І століттями Росія нищила та поневолювала сусідні народи, відбираючи в них усі ресурси, подібно вампіру, який живиться кров'ю жертви. Сучасну Росію не влаштовує існування України, бо це вказує на її неповноцінність. Ми, українці, вічне нагадування їй про її штучне походження. Вона хоче бути унікальною імперією, але її унікальність крадена, збудована на брехні та крові. І тому сьогодні Росія намагається знищити Україну як вільну державу, а українців як окрему націю. Про це свідчать військові злочини Росії проти мого народу, про які я вже говорила. Саме тому, на мою думку, з Росією неможливо домовлятися. Вона не виконає жодного узятого на себе зобов'язання. Їй це не вигідно. Так само в переговорному процесі неможливі якісь компроміси чи поступки, бо вони не будуть виконані. Та які можуть бути компроміси з державою, яка поставила на меті знищити мій народ? Будь-який компроміс означатиме, що в цій війні марно загинули тисячі українців. Це поплюження. Це знецінення їх жертовності, бо кожен з нас чітко розуміє. Ми воюємо за право жити на своїй землі і за право бути українцем, окремим та вільним народом. Кожен з нас вірить у нашу перемогу. І я безмежно вдячна кожній нації на цій планеті, яка надала допомогу моєму народові. Неважливо чим – зброєю, їжею, грошима або просто добрим словом та співчуттям. Ви не уявляєте, наскільки це для нас цінно. Ми відчуваємо, що ми не самотні, що ви з нами. Мій народ ніколи не забуде цієї вашої доброти. Бережи вас усіх, Господь.
So this is the vision of Ukrainian experts on Russia-Ukraine negotiations. We hope that it is going to be fruitful for Ukraine, and very soon we will celebrate our freedom and our victory. Thank you for watching us today. In the description to this video you can find the information how personally you can help Ukraine against Russian aggression. And if you find our job useful, please like, share this video and follow our YouTube channel. Everything is gonna be Ukraine.